A new study has come out that has shown that the myth around decriminalizing drugs is actually not reality. In fact, decriminalizing drugs doesn't worsen overdoses or contribute to more violent crime. That's according to a New York University Grossman School of Medicine study published in JAMA Psychiatry that looked at a year's worth of overdose data in Oregon and Washington that both had decriminalized drugs in 2021, found no evidence linking an increase in overdose deaths to those decriminalization policies. What's interesting about this study, however, is that it didn't find that the overdose deaths went down. Okay, they remained effectively the same. In fact, they didn't plateau. They did go up, but they went up on par with the stats that were around the country. So let's jump down here to graphic 4. While overdoses didn't go up in the states because of decriminalization, they still went up. Oregon's went from 18.7 per 100,000 people to 26.8 per 100,000 people, while Washington went from 22 per 100,000 people to 28.1 per 100,000 people in 2020 and 2021. But the study compared the states' increases with a control group made up of data from similar states that didn't decriminalize drugs and found the differences weren't statistically significant. In other words, overdoses are going up no matter what. The decriminalization policies were not part of that. And the other thing I'll say with this is specifically in Oregon, a lot of the harm reduction policies that were implemented alongside the decriminalization hadn't taken effect yet before this study was complete. What was taking place is the fact that fentanyl has been basically released onto the streets and has claimed so many lives. So the overdoses are of course going up. This is according to someone who worked on the study. This is from Corey Davis, part of it. He says, you can definitely overdose and die on cocaine or methamphetamine, but it's not as prevalent as overdosing and dying on opioids. But fentanyl, which initially was more prominent in the East, has now infiltrated the drug supply all over the country. It's so cheap and available that people are starting to use fentanyl who didn't before. Davis said the contaminated drug supply is the main problem, but discussion of having a safe drug supply is a political non-starter. In other words, fentanyl could be regulated. We could stop overdoses easily, no matter what the decriminalization laws are. That criminalizing fentanyl will not help, but it is a political non-starter. Yasmin, just weigh in here on this new data.
So I think what this issue does is it really puts into very, you can really see it very clearly, something that happens with a lot of issues in this country. There's the science, and then there's, like, how do we help people? How do we actually make things better? How do we actually run the country in a way that's effective and efficient and operational and safe for people, and also grants people the freedoms to make decisions over their own life? And then there's the politicization of all of that, right? There's data and then there's politics, and they should work hand in hand together, but so often we find that they just don't. Yes. And in this case, we see that there's data that supports, decriminalizing doesn't necessarily increase overdoses. We have the data to support that. But at the same time, people are still going to take those hard numbers, maybe take them out of context, maybe just say, but it still went up, and not understand the way statistics and the way that sample sizes and things like that work. Absolutely. And the politics, they don't really care about all the details and things like that. They just need a soundbite. They just need something to put out to the American people and say, look, it went up, so we shouldn't have it anymore. Even Absolutely. Though, with gun deaths and things like that, they don't tend to apply the same kind of logic.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.